The third generation of Pokemon brought some of the most iconic Pokemon in the series, with Pokemon such as Metagross, Salamence, and of course the Lati twins. It's no surprise why the third generation is so loved in the community, and why many of the iconic third generation Pokemon receive Mega Evolutions in the 6th generation. I wish that some more third generation Pokemon like Flagon and Milotic got Mega Evolutions, as well as some of the worser Pokemon in third generation in order to make them better. Pokemon like Altera and Mawile really weren't all that great before they got a Mega Evolution, and now that they both have Mega Evolutions, they're some fan favorites in battling. It would have been nice to see Pokemon like Delcatty get a Mega Evolution as well, since Delcatty is one of the worst Pokemon of the third generation. If you guys are unfamiliar in this series, take a look at some of the worst Pokemon in the game and discuss if they're completely useless or if they have some sort of viable use. Each Pokemon rated on a scale 1 to 5 based on their offense, defense, versatility, move pool, and overall viability. If a Pokemon doesn't excel in any of these categories, then it is deemed to be one of the worst Pokemon. If one of the Pokemon discussed in this series happens to be one of your favorite Pokemon, I do apologize, but just because a Pokemon is your favorite doesn't mean that it is safe from being in one of these videos. If you guys enjoy this, you want to see more, make sure you subscribe and leave a like, and let me know in the comments down below what Pokemon I want to see featured in this series in the future. But before you do that, please check out the full playlist to see what was featured thus far, and please do not recommend Pokemon that get Mega Evolutions or Pokemon that aren't fully evolved, since that kind of defeats the purpose of these videos. So to give a brief overview on Delcatty, Delcatty is a mono-normal type Pokemon with the abilities Cute Charm, Normalize, and Wonder Skin. Delcatty has a stat distribution of 70 in HP, 65 in attack, 65 in defense, 55 in special attack, 55 in special defense, and 90 in speed. These stats are really mediocre, with the highest stat being 90 in speed, which used to be 70 base speed up until the 7th generation, where it got a slight buff. This 20-point buff in speed is nice and all, since 90 is actually an okay speed stat. However, since you are seeing Delcatty in this series, I don't think that boost was enough. I also never really looked at Delcatty before making this video, and I noticed that its head looks a little weird. So I figured, let's see what Delcatty looks like without the pink part of its head, and it just looks like a cat with a smaller head, which is kind of creepy. So in terms of the abilities, Cute Charm is a gimmicky ability. It's, it can be used, but it's not the best. Wonder Skin is pretty interesting. It makes it so opposing status moves accuracy is reduced to 50%, which is okay. It's not completely useless, but like I said, they're really not great. I feel like Wonder Skin could be good on certain Pokemon, but Delcatty isn't one of those Pokemon. Normalize is a very interesting ability, however. Normalize makes it so all moves used by the Pokemon are normal type. This actually got a buff in the 7th generation as well to add a 1.2 times boost to normal type moves, since before the 7th generation, Normalize didn't give a boost to the moves like Pixelate or Aerolite does. Normalize also turns every single move used by the user into normal type, not just offensive moves, so you do have access to some gimmicky things like a normal type Thunder Wave, which could be kinda cool. And now on to the positives. For the first positive is Normalize, which can also be a negative, which you'll see later on, but Normalize is kind of cool because it makes everything stab, which is kinda nice, I guess, and you have the normal type Thunder Wave, meaning you can paralyze ground type Pokemon with Thunder Wave, which I guess is like the coolest thing about Delcatty. You also have some okay utility moves with things like Thunder Wave, Sweet Kiss, Calm Mind, and Baton Pass. Not the best, but there are a couple of options there, which is kind of nice. Like I said earlier in the series with these videos, whenever we talk about positives, a lot of the times we're reaching, and I feel like with Delcatty, all these positives are kind of a reach because we need at least a couple of positives for these Pokemon. For the next positive, Delcatty has an okay speed stat of 90. It's not the worst thing in the world. It is kind of slow, I guess, but it's more usable than other Pokemon we featured thus far. It also has some decent coverage as well, but this is also a bad thing, which I will talk about a little bit later. As you can see, there really aren't many positives for Delcatty. And now onto the negatives. Delcatty has really low bulk. You have 70 in HP and then less than 70 in all the defenses. That is pretty bad. You also have really low offenses. You're not really doing any damage with this Pokemon because you have no attack stats, basically. And now Normalize, although it is kind of cool, making everything a normal type means you have no coverage because every single attack you go for is going to be a normal type. That also means you are hard walled by ghost types because you can't touch it, as well as any other Pokemon that resist normal because there's nothing you can do to them. And now let's go on to the ratings. In terms of offense, I will give Delcatty a 1. 65 in attack and 55 in special attack are way too low to do any sort of damage, and if you run Normalize, all your moves will be normal, meaning you do get the stab boost, but like I said earlier, you are walled by ghost types and any other Pokemon that resist normal, which makes Delcatty a pretty underwhelming offensive Pokemon. You also won't hit anything for super effective damage you have Normalized, which does hinder it a little bit more. Delcatty is probably the most useless offensive Pokemon we featured in this series so far. Probably even worse than leading, but that might be a stretch. For defense, I will give Delcatty a 1 out of 5 as well. You just don't have enough bulk. You do have access to things like Calm Mind and Cosmic Power, which do help boost your defenses. However, 70 in HP, 65 defense, and 55 in special defense is just way too low to be able to take hits. You also have no form of reliable recovery, meaning Delcatty will get most likely two-shotted by almost any Pokemon. For versatility, there really isn't much to Delcatty, which is why I'll give it a 1 out of 5 for versatility. Sure, Delcatty is a pretty unique Pokemon with the ability to normalize, but outside of a typical normalize set with Thunder Wave, Sucker Punch, Return, and a 4th filler move, there really isn't much to it. For Movepool, I will give Delcatty a 2 out of 5. Delcatty actually has a fairly okay Movepool with things such as Thunder Wave, Sucker Punch, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, to name a few. However, if you're running Normalize, all of these moves will be normal type moves, meaning you are just better off running a typical physical set that I mentioned earlier with Normalize and Sucker Punch and so on. For Viability, I will give Delcatty a 1 out of 5. It is a pretty unique Pokemon, which is nice, but outside of being able to go for Thunder Wave on a ground type with Normalize, Delcatty has no other uses. Delcatty is honestly outclassed by Dunsparce, aka Arceus 10% form, of all things, which is a normal type Pokemon with better bulk and offenses, but lower speed. Dunsparce could also use moves that aren't normal type moves, unlike Delcatty if it has Normalize, and you can technically Thunder Wave ground type Pokemon with Glare, which is a normal type move that is basically Thunder Wave but 100 accurate. This basically means you have no reason to use Delcatty over Dunsparce, which is really weird to say because Dunsparce, for whatever reason, has been recommended for the series a lot, and Dunsparce is widely considered a pretty bad Pokemon, although in my opinion it's pretty decent. So in terms of improvements, I feel like one way Delcatty could be improved is if it got a Mega Evolution. Now this is kind of a cop-out. I feel like a Mega Evolution can make literally any Pokemon better, except for Garchomp. But I remember making a video a long time ago about Pokemon I want to see get a Mega Evolution, and Delcatty was on that list. And like I say, I feel like Delcatty deserves Mega Evolution, kind of like Flygon, rest in peace Flygon, and Milotic. It would also be cool to see Delcatty get the Fairy typing. I feel like this Pokemon looks like it could be a Fairy type. You look at Pokemon that got their types changed to Fairy type in 6th gen, like Gardevoir and Wigglytuff, and I feel like this Pokemon is in line with those Pokemon in terms of design. However, I feel like just giving it the Fairy typing isn't enough. You also have to give it some stat boost to go along with it. And that is Delcatty. Let me know what you think of Delcatty in the comments section down below, and let me know what Pokemon you want to see featured in this series in the future that hasn't featured thus far. Personally, I think Delcatty is one of the worst Pokemon featured in this series, but not as bad as Unknown, which I guess is a positive. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure you subscribe and leave a like, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good rest of your day, and bye-bye.